folks, Canadian Prepper here. A man's morality is proportional to his access to resources. I repeat, a man's morality is proportional to his access to resources. A friend of mine, Rod Gil-Taca, over at the CCFR, said that in a recent interview that we conducted. What does he mean by that? Well, today we are going to be sharing some very, very disturbing thoughts about how the Western psyche is going to adapt or not adapt to the coming collapse of our way of life that I believe is well underway, and I don't believe that's just a belief. I think that that's empirically substantiated as well. What he means when he says that is that when times get hard, when resources diminish, when there's not enough to go around, people's morality that they've pedestalized and prided themselves for the longest time is going to diminish. They're going to do whatever it takes to survive, whether that means thieving, committing violent acts in order to acquire the things that them and their children need in order to survive. And I'm not going to fault anybody for doing what they need to do to stay alive, but a lot of people are under the impression within our society, and this is the fundamental reason why a lot of people don't prep, that they will never do such things, okay? Because we have this haughty-taughty sense of morality here in the West, which is unjustified in my opinion. We look to the so-called autocracies and authoritarian regimes of the East, the dictators of the Middle East and the warlords in Africa, and we look at them like, we would never do such a thing. The reason why we are so civil right now is solely due to the abundance of energy and cheap stuff. As the finite pool of cheap energy and resources becomes smaller and smaller, societies will move from freedom-loving democracies to autocracies and authoritarian regimes to dictatorships, ultimately descending into civil war, tribalism, lawlessness, and complete collapse. Once that well runs dry, you're going to see a whole different animal. And I want you to consider something else. We, in the West, and by the West, I mean any G20 country, basically, we have the highest rate of taxation. We have the most amount of debt. Okay, we use the most amount of energy per capita, something like 30 times the average person in India, 100 times the average person in Africa. And what do we have to show for it? It's not like we're producing things in factories. It's not like we're building spaceships. No, we're, building fast cars. We got virtual reality headsets and all other manner of conspicuous, wasteful consumption. We are among the most polarized and divided in the world. We're on the brink of what many people think is a civil war. We are the most entitled generation within an entitled society on the whole. We have the highest rates of pharmaceutical dependence, and when those cargo ships start coming in from India with the medications, we're going to see what the result of that is going to be. We have the highest rate of these crazy active shooter scenarios. We have the highest rates of incarceration in the United States, and we're among the most infertile. And did I mention that we have the largest militaries in the world? I think I did, but you get the picture. We're not nearly as moral as we think, and that's going to become really evident when the wells run dry, okay? When the rivers start to dry up and there ain't enough stuff to go around, people are going to realize their true animal nature, because it's going to occur to them, maybe these countries over here, maybe they're not as immoral as we thought. These theocracies in the Middle East and these dictators that have to manage their populations in a different way than we do in the democratic West. Okay, maybe we're going to realize that our abundant mindset, our way of thinking, which is solely due to money printing, by the way. We live in a service-based economy where we don't really create anything anymore. We print money and we buy stuff from other countries that make stuff with that money because we have the petrodollar that we're enforcing with all the aircraft carriers around the world. But that is ending. That period is definitely ending. Now, what has happened in the Western mindset is that we've conditioned ourselves, like I said, to believe that we have this a heightened sense of morality, which is owed to nothing more than abundance. And a guy named David Worcester wrote a book called Shrinking the Earth. And his thesis in this book is that the fundamental delusion of the American psyche, and by American I mean North American, South American, Central American, any imperialist, colonialist mindset, is that stuff is endless and infinite, and that we can continuously, conspicuously consume stuff to our heart's content to the bitter end, and that it is going to go on and on and on forever. We assume, because we've always been conditioned to believe that the sky is the limit, the American dream, that stuff is never going to run out, that we will never lose our morality. And this has endowed us with that haughty-taughty sense of morality that we all walk around with. And we think, well, if disaster strikes here, I'm not going to become the villain. I'm going to be the hero in the story, right? No, chances are, if you're not prepping, you are going to be one of the zombies or one of the bad guys, one of the antagonists in that movie, okay? Now, the Western psyche, especially here in North America, according to David Worcester, has been shaped by this 200 years of limitless expanse. And it's only now that we're reaching the limits of all of that. We see that in terms of our energy extraction. It's costing more and more barrels of oil to acquire barrels of oil. I can't remember what shale is. I think it's 2 to 1. So it takes us 1 barrel of oil in order to get 2. It used to be it took us 1 barrel of oil to get 100. Okay, and some wells around the world will still churn out 25 barrels of oil per one. I can't remember what the exact ratio or the term, but there's a term out there, and it's becoming less and less. We're entering an era of energy reduction, where we are going to be forced to live with less by hook or by crook. And even Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, has come out and said the age of abundance is over. Now, people in Europe, people in other countries around the world where they've kind of been landlocked for, hundreds of years, if not millennia, and they haven't had this experience that we've had in the West of coming across the frontier and this endless new bounty of stuff and material. They don't have this same psyche that we have out here in the Americas. And this is why it's going to be so crazy out here, because that is the fundamental underpinning of our entitlement issues here in the West, is this sense that it's going to go on forever. Well, we're all going to get a reality check soon, because the age of abundance is effectively over. Okay, the age of cheap stuff is over. Other countries are realizing it. Other countries are going to start to industrialize. And if you haven't realized it yet, there is a mad scramble by the rest of the world to industrialize and consume energy that we want to put in our fast cars. Okay, and whether it's a Tesla or whether it's something that runs on gasoline, an ICE engine, it doesn't matter, because those days are numbered. Now, you, me, everybody else doesn't like it when somebody in a private jet is telling us that we need to live with less. But as preppers, the self-reliant inclination that we have, the good news is that the way of life that we can expect to live, that we're likely going to be forced into in one way or another, doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to not have as fulfilling of an existence. In fact, if you look at people who go off grid, bushcrafters, people who just like to go camping and just like to get out into nature. Why do you do that? Well, you do that because it's a more minimalist way of life. You don't need the big mansion and the big swimming pool. Sure, I want to have that as an option, if I work hard enough so I can go and get that. But the fact is that is going to become less and less likely. We are now entering a new era, and I'm going to be interviewing many guests in the coming weeks and months ahead that are going to be able to educate people about this coming contraction and how we are going to either go down this road by choice or we are going to be forced into it by gunpoint. And as preppers, I think that it's better that we get a head start on things and we do it by choice. Because of those reasons that I listed, it's going to be far worse here than it is in a lot of these other authoritarian, as we call them, authoritarian countries, where we just assume that, life must suck there and people must not have any fun. Well, that's not what I hear, okay? I'm not saying that I want to live there because, this is home, this is what I know. But I think we need to consider the fact that maybe we are duped, maybe we are delusional about not only the idea that this can go on forever, which it can't, but also that when it does collapse here, it's probably going to be a lot worse than when it collapses there. You know, Peter Schiff, in a recent interview that I did with him, he said that in Puerto Rico, when disasters come through, people are used to it. People are used to living with less, so there's not as high to fall from. If you think about Western society, we're way up in the penthouse. Well, when you gotta jump out of a burning building, would you rather jump out of the penthouse or would you rather jump out of the first floor? Okay? People who are used to hardship and accustomed to using less to get by, they're jumping out of the first floor. We're gonna be jumping out of the penthouse, or at least, even though the poorest in our society are jumping out of the third or fourth floor, and that's gonna hurt because we just don't have the skills. We don't have the rural agrarian mindset where we have that direct connection with the earth that a lot of people around the world have. A lot of people know where their drinking water comes from. They don't have this extensive supply chain in between them and what they need to survive. Now, I'm not talking about the mega cities in Asia or Dubai. You know, I mean, it's a complete, it's an incubator. I mean, everything has to be shipped in. But here in the West, we're in for a rude awakening. What are your guys' thoughts on the things that I've talked about today? Let me know in the comment section below. And how bad do you think it's going to get here in the West? Do you think it's going to be worse? I personally think it's going to be worse because we live in the land of make-believe, and other countries, I don't think they have all the delusions that we have baked in to how we go about life. Anyways, you let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy these videos. We do everything from gear reviews to interviewing people within the preparedness community, experts on, you know, all things collapse, and we also like to have a little bit of fun once in a while. And of course, we do our daily World War Z updates, so make sure you stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching, guys. You take care. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.